Imagine taking all your company's servers, your critical databases, and your HR systems, and just dumping them into one giant unsegmented Azure network. It would be absolute chaos. What actually happens in that setup? It's a disaster. It's literally like putting your CEO, the warehouse loading dock, and the server room all in one massive, wall-less office. Everyone's talking over each other, and anyone can walk absolutely anywhere. In the cloud, this chaos room approach completely destroys your security and spikes your network congestion, and that is exactly the problem Azure Subnets are designed to solve. So what is a subnet? It's simply dividing a massive network into smaller, isolated, and manageable sections. Think of them as the critical interior walls of your cloud environment. Picture your overarching virtual network, your VNet, as an entire apartment building. Subnets are the individual locked rooms inside that building. You've got one for finance, one for HR. Same building, but totally isolated spaces. Why do we even need to build these walls? 3 huge reasons: higher security, much easier management, and severely reduced traffic. Let's look at the biggest one, which is security. Imagine a hacker compromises one of your web servers. In an unsegmented network, they now have a straight, unobstructed path right to your customer database. But with subnets, they hit a brick wall. The web server might fall, but your database remains totally secure in its own isolated room. Let's see how this applies to a real-world Azure architecture. If you're building an e-commerce platform, you want to map it out perfectly. A dedicated subnet for web servers, one for SQL databases, a separate space for test machines, and one strictly for management tools like Bastion. It just keeps everything neatly organized and prevents major administrative nightmares. Now, here's a really crucial point. These subnets can actually communicate with each other by default, as long as they live inside the exact same VNet building. The walls are there, but the doors are initially unlocked. But we don't just leave them unlocked. We use network security groups, or NSGs, to lock down that default communication. So you can set a strict rule saying a web server can only hit the database subnet on one very specific SQL port, like 1433. Everything else is completely blocked. Subnets divide the network, but NSGs secure the doors. Now for a few crucial Azure Subnet rules you absolutely need to know. First up is IP addressing. It's kind of counterintuitive, but a smaller CIDR number actually means a significantly larger network space. A /16 gives you a massive network, while a /24 is pretty tiny. You have to get this sizing right from day one. Why? Because you cannot easily resize a subnet later. If you guess the wrong size and run out of IP addresses, you're usually stuck tearing it down, building a new one, and manually migrating your resources over. Calculating your future growth is a mandatory first step. Plan ahead. Another hard rule: certain Azure services demand their own completely dedicated subnets. You can't just throw an Azure Bastion host, a VPN gateway, or an app gateway in with your web servers. Azure literally requires them to have specifically named isolated subnets to even function. Take an enterprise bank, for example. They strictly isolate their front-end servers, app logic, and databases into dedicated subnets. This means if one specific tier needs tighter security or massive scaling, the other tiers are completely untouched. Which brings us to the absolute biggest misconception cloud beginners have: are subnets entirely independent networks? No, they aren't. Subnets are just slices of one VNet pie. If your architecture demands true 100% total isolation, like for a highly classified project, you don't just build a new subnet. You have to build an entirely separate VNet from scratch. To really lock this in, think of it like this. Your VNet is the entire country. The subnets are the individual provinces or states within that country. They have their own borders and local rules, sure, but they are all still part of the exact same sovereign nation. So take a hard look at your cloud setup right now. Have you built a secure, well-organized country, or are you just one compromised server away from a chaos room? Always have an analyst mindset. Follow for more, and I'll see you in the next one.
That is the mindset we build here. Build your knowledge. Sharpen your skills. Develop your analyst mindset.